Ladies and creatures and gentlemen, I'm Mitchell Roulaine, the host of the podcast show for the average Joe, The Wrestling Diaries. And tune in to find out what the average person in life wrestles with and how they can overcome their own adversity. As always, check us out on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other platforms that host audio podcasts. Today, I have a really awesome guest I'm so glad to have on the show. Kriska. Did I say that right?
You said it right.
Kriska.
Good job.
I'm always nervous I'm going to get people's last names wrong. I guess it's the first names, right? It's the first names you want to get.
It's the first name that counts.
So you are a tattoo artist in the local Birmingham area, Alabaster specifically. Tell me how you got into tattoos.
Well, I got into tattoos totally by accident. I was airbrushing at a flea market in Pennsylvania, and I bartered some work with a tattoo artist. And he told me that he would teach me to tattoo if I taught him to airbrush.
Okay.
Which sounded like a really good deal. But his hands were very shaky for airbrushing, which should tell you what his tattoo work looked like.
Oh, my goodness.
And, but he got me started. And there was this instant passion for the art. Just putting something into somebody's skin was like, I don't know, it was euphoric to me. And so he ended up getting arrested for a DUI on a suspended license for a DUI. So once he disappeared, it was a struggle for me to go from shop to shop, kind of find someone that was willing to take me on as their apprentice or let me work with them. And back in that time, we're talking like 16 years ago, women in the tattoo world were very, very non-popular.
What do you think that is?
It was just a male-dominated industry. Started with, a lot of great male artists and, a lot of prison tattooing. And so when things came out about females, it was usually eye candy for the studio or a front desk girl. So people wouldn't really take me seriously. And eventually I found somebody named Tim Azinger who allowed me to sit in his studio for a little while and watch and ask questions. And from there, everything just kind of rolled into where we are today.
Okay. What happened to the guy that got the DUI?
I've never heard from him again. And I'm kind of thankful for that.
Okay. He obviously sounds like a toxic person then.
Yes, a very toxic person. There's been a lot of toxic people along the way. I think the industry has a lot of stereotypes.
Yeah, stigmas.
Yeah.
It's so weird though, right? I guess sometimes it can come with the territory, It seems kind of an edgy practice to do. And so obviously you would get edgy people from time to time doing those things. So you were saying that like you were doing you were into airbrushing, and so you're trading off with this guy, like bartering with him basically.
Right.
So he did tattoos, you did airbrushing, and so prior to doing the tattoos, you were doing airbrush stuff, like airbrush work. So what's that all about?
T-shirts, license plates, sneakers, hats, anything that we could spray on was fair game. And if we couldn't figure out how to spray on it, we would find a way to make it sprayable. And we actually spent a good couple summers going from ball field to ball field airbrushing helmets for kids. And just, it was a blast. I love their expressions. We did the Miracle League up here in Birmingham, and that's where special needs kids play. And we went and airbrushed for them, and we got to airbrush baseball bats and wheelchairs.
Oh, wow.
And just
I don't
to
think
see,
I've ever seen an airbrushed wheelchair before.
Just to see their expressions it was payment enough for, just to watch their face light up. So it's really, for me, it's about doing for the other person, like the reaction that I get from that person is what feeds me.
Right. It's like your currency.
Yeah.
Like their gratification and their happiness. Yeah. I can totally get what you mean by that. I worked for a long time with a nonprofit organization. I got to tell you, like, when you're giving food to people that don't have any and they're just looking at you with tears in your eyes. There's something just so eternally rewarding in that. I can't even describe it. I just can't describe it. It's just something you just have to feel like as a person individually. But back to your artwork. So obviously you're an artistic person. You're doing tattoos. I'm assuming like from an early age you started drawing or painting or something like that. Like where does the root of that? Where does it stem from? When did you realize like, oh, this is what I want to do with life? I just want to create art. I want to paint. I want to draw. I want to airbrush.
So funny story. I was about 4 years old when I drew an owl and called it an owl. And
Wait, do you still have this picture?
My mom does still have this picture. And she says, as soon as she saw that picture, she knew that she was going to be dealing with an artist for the rest of her life. And it didn't stop from there. I just kind of kept drawing and kept painting. I would paint the walls, the canvases, clothes, whatever I could reach. And I really originally wanted to be like a grease monkey and work on cars. So somewhere we flipped from that into doing art. And I think it actually, now that the question is here in front of me, happened when I was working at an ice cream store because I got to start decorating their cakes. So there was this artsy ability to, sort of create on a cake and make somebody smile that started the trend of just pushing the art further and further.
And so you currently you own a tattoo shop in Alabaster, right?
That's correct.
Now tell us a little bit about that. People listening, like what about your business out there?
So we are celebrating 10 years this year. Yay.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Wish we had some confetti to just fall down.
Pour down confetti. That would be awesome. So we have actually been open for 10 years. And when I opened the business, it's not my first tattoo studio, but it's my first studio here in Alabama, which is also the first regulated state that I've opened in. And so we had to jump through some hoops, which I was pretty pleased with about the regulating.
What does it mean to get regulated exactly? Like just to be able to have a tattoo shop?
The health department's got to come in. Things have to meet up to their standards, which should help make people feel a lot more comfortable about the studios that they're going to.
Right, because you're having a needle.
Absolutely. And so they have to pass certain health requirements. They have to be bloodborne pathogen certified. Their rooms and their equipment all have to pass standards. So it was really kind of a new world for me to come into. And when we first opened, the health department guy was great. He was very helpful for us. And then we started to kind of just become this shop that I guess they just trusted. And so we didn't see them as often as they should have come by, but I would call them and say, hey, you're kind of due to come check us out. And they were very much like, we know, and you're good. We'll be there when we get there. And it was like, okay, that's great.
That sounds really awesome on your part, right? Because like how many people are going to call them and be like, hey, you're due for coming into and inspecting my shop with a fine tooth comb, please.
Please do that. Please do that.
Right. It's like those restaurants that would call those people to do the health inspections and stuff.
Yes.
You can see the GM calling like, hey, I need you to come in here and make sure there's no rats and check to see if there's hair in the burgers.
Nobody wants that stress. But for me, it was really important. And, cleanliness is just, it's part of the mannerisms of what I do. So once we got that all off the ground, we had originally set up with one room for me and then a second room with an idea that eventually we would have a second tattoo artist. And we went 9 years without a second tattoo artist.
Just you, huh?
Just me for 9 years. And then this past January, we picked up Fonzie Ramon, who is a fantastic artist. She's young.
Wait, hold on. Is her real name Fonzie?
That's that is her tattoo name.
Okay, that's her tattoo name. Either way,
Yes.
it's like the coolest name ever.
I know.
If you see this, Fonzie, thumbs up on the name.
She will. I'll be certain to share it with her. And we picked her up in January, and she's got about 5 years experience under her belt now. And she is pushing out some beautiful work. And we vibe really well. So it was the answer to a prayer, really, for, having her there.
Yeah, match made in tattoo heaven. Well, that's really great. So did you, because based on what you were saying earlier about how the field of work it was dominated mostly by men, did you get Fonzie just because you're like, oh, it'd be great to have like a shop ran by ladies, or was it just like perfect place, perfect time for her, or something like that?
I think it was kind of both. The prayer had very specifically been, God, I'm looking for a female Christian tattoo artist. And so we had a lot of people come through that were like, hey, I tattoo, out of my kitchen. And this is my tattoo portfolio here on my skin.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, oh, don't do that. Not regulated.
My resume is tattooed on my back.
Yes.
Check it out.
And so she actually came in with this beautiful portfolio put together. Her artwork blew me away. She does a lot of portraiture work, which is not something that is on my repertoire. So to have that in our battle plan is awesome. I want to see her. I want to feed into her potential and see her hit the point where she's tattooing portraits and she is really like solidifying that for herself.
Have you and Fonzie tattooed each other?
Absolutely.
Has that been a thing?
This is my Fonzie tattoo.
Okay.
And
what is that? What am I looking at here?
So what you're looking at is a dark rain cloud with flowers in it. And this is actually the tattoo that I have for my husband. Okay. Because I call him my little black rain cloud.
Nice.
We can't watch a movie or a TV show without him ruining the ending for me. And so
he's giving up the synopsis and the final plot twist.
And albeit he's always right. So
he sounds like an observant gentleman.
So I call him my little black rain cloud. And I said, I really want to get tattooed a little black rain cloud for you. And once I figured out he wasn't going to be mad about it, like he wasn't offended by it, I had Fonzie design that for me and put it on me. And I got to be honest, that was a real tender spot to get tattooed. But it was worth it.
What kind of flowers are in the clouds?
So these are sort of cherry blossom type flowers.
And then the petals are falling down, and then one of them is in color.
One of them is in color as my little rain heart.
That's so cool. I love that.
So now when he starts to ruin my TV shows, I just point to my arm.
Does he zip it up? Does it work? Is he like, oh, okay, I got you?
No, not really. Not really.
I love that though too. Like it's because a lot of people get, their significant others or people that they love or their friends or whatever, like their names tattooed, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that for anybody listening, but it can be kind of cliche because it's done so much. And so for you to get like something, like a visual of something, I think is really cool. That's symbolic,
Yeah, we always try to push in that direction because there's a tattoo. The tattoo gods apparently decided that if you get your significant other's name tattooed on you, that you have
to break up.
You have to break up. That's
you just have it.
That's
stuck
the
over
law.
Your body.
the unwritten law in the tattoo world. And so anytime people want to memorialize something like that, I always push for symbolism, which for them gives them the chance to share a story if they want to. Or it gives them the chance to just say, no, this is a lion and that's what it is,
Ooh, I just got chills when you're saying that. That's a really good point in life because like it's symbolic, but other people can see it as what they want to see it, right? They can interpret it in a different way. Maybe it means something different to them than it means to you. Like they see it and it reminds you of your husband. Somebody else sees it. Oh, that reminds me of my grandfather who fought in this war when it was a downpour or something, And so there's something so beautiful in that. In case anybody's wondering about the awkwardness, we had to cut out because we had some audio issues. It's okay. You don't have to cut this part out, Matt. It's funny. But anyways, so you were saying that you and your husband, I guess, you were counting all your tattoos, and what was the number you came up with here?
So we came up with 19.
19 tattoos total.
And some of them are covered up. So I have smaller tattoos covered by larger tattoos, and I count those as 2 tattoos.
Why are some of those covered up, if I can ask? Just regretful tattoos or ones you didn't like, or?
Sort of learning in the process of, some of them were ones that I didn't like. Some of them were ones that I needed to cover up for just myself. And some of them were ones that I had tried, experimented with myself, tattooing myself. So I wanted somebody to make that much better than where it was at the moment. It's like, you look at it some 10 years later and you go, okay, I need to fix that.
Yeah. Our mutual friend Ivy has a tattoo on his forearm. I'm sure he wishes wasn't there. You know what I'm talking about, Matt? The star that he has on his. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm the one that paid for it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because it was your uncle that does tattoos, right? Yeah, so his uncle is a tattoo artist from Detroit.
Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
Cool.
Yeah, he did a piece on Matt's chest. Matt has this really cool piece of it's like the Earth as like a meteorite.
Oh, wow.
It's on his chest. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yep. Me, I just got the good old butterfly on the small of my back. That's all I got. No, I have an Asian dragon like on this whole part of my shoulder. I'll show you when the show's over.
See, that's cool.
Yeah, well, it's part of my heritage because I'm part Asian, so I got that to pay homage. That part of my culture,
and it's part of your story, so you get to share your story.
Well, it's also based off of this statue that's really beautiful that an old dear friend gave me many years ago. This Asian koi dragon, and I was like, man, this is the most beautiful statue I've ever seen. It's like sitting up on my bookcase at home right now, and I was like, I would love to have some form of that on my body. And then because it's Asian, I can be like, oh, part of my heritage. So, but yeah, that's what I got.
That's awesome.
That's all I got. Everybody was telling me though, I don't know if you've heard this or as a tattoo artist, if it makes sense, but they say like, oh, once you get one, you're just going to want to keep going like a kid's like
to your next addiction
sketch pad. But I got this tattoo like many years ago and I guess it's because I'm very indecisive and I'm also super picky and I procrastinate things. And I think that has helped me not be full of tattoos right now. Because there's so many things I would love. Yeah, there's so many things that I would really, really love to have. I thought of this really, I don't want to say it because I don't want anybody to steal the idea possibly because it's totally like original and it's like something personal to me. I'll tell you after the show's over. So y'all took a trip up north. You were originally from Chicago?
Originally from Chicago. And when we were 6, my dad worked for U.S. Steel. So we moved over to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is another steel town, sister steel town to Birmingham.
So that's the connection because I've always wondered, like growing up, why there's so much crossover between like Alabama and that part of Illinois, and then even Pennsylvania, and so that's what it is. The steel working,
the steel industry.
I never thought about that. That makes a lot of sense now. You're saying it.
And I spent most of my life growing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where I met my husband, where I did my schooling, and funny story, I went to school in the prime area of drugs and terrible things going on, murders and, all of this bad stuff happening. Our school was dead center in that area. And we got shipped there on a school bus. And so I spent my 3 years there, got to experience a lot of different things that were like culture shock to me at that point in my life. And then high school was just down the road, but it was in a college town. So I spent a lot of my high school skipping school and hanging out in this college town. And I ended up going to the zoo a lot and drawing. I would go to cemeteries and do grave rubbings. I would just sit downtown and watch people and draw them. And so, like, the drawing developed even more so in the high school years where I should have been in school. And eventually I went from being in this college town school of like 2,500 people went to school there, to going to a school of like 600 people that was specifically for art. I got failed out of the photography class because I was allergic to the chemicals. I couldn't develop the film. And so, like, my art school was not really good for me. It wasn't beneficial for me in any way. So I dropped out after 9 months or 9 weeks. Got my GED. And then I started a correspondence school. And when I finished the correspondence school, it's like a mail-in school. They send you work, you fill it out, you mail it in. When I finished that, I found an art correspondence school. And a long time ago, back in the day, on the side of like cereal boxes and milk carts, you used to find these little pictures of like pirates or turtles. And it would say, "Can you draw me?" And if you can draw me, mail it into this address and we'll be in touch about art school. And so I did this, and we got a representative out, and he was like, "Your artwork was amazing." It was a turtle, like a pirate turtle. So
Okay.
I'm not sure how amazing a pirate turtle can be.
Sounds hilarious.
A
Ninja Turtle would have been better.
Yeah,
but we'll
Ninja
stick
Turtle
with
would have been better.
Pirate's good.
And so I started an art correspondence school. And that was really, really challenging, but it helped me develop the ability to run a business, because it was all, they're sending you the equipment, the supplies. You have to do the work on your own time, in your own motivation, and then you have to send it back to be graded, all snail mail back in the day, so you wait for your presentation to come back and see what you got. But it taught me timing, it taught me patience, it taught me just, that there was a process to things. And it gave me a lot of really good insight into the art world. And at that point I thought, maybe I'd be a graphic designer or something like that. But computers and we
don't get along.
Yeah, for the longest time did not get along.
But your husband's like a computer tech person,
Absolutely.
right? So that's the perfect like marriage of like,
absolutely.
He does that and you do the
I break
tattoo
it,
art.
he fixes it.
Right. The perfect relationship, ladies and gentlemen.
And everybody says to him, because he's got one tattoo, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, where are all your tattoos? You're married to a tattoo artist." Yeah. And he's like, "Do I look like the kind of person that would have tattoos?"
He does it. He really does it. What's the tattoo he has? Can I ask?
So he has 2 roses and a cross on his chest.
Okay, nice.
And each rose is for the girls, and the cross, of course, is for God. And so we're trying to figure out something to add for his son, who's in Pennsylvania, and to add something for me, which, I don't know what to put in there for me. Maybe a little tattoo machine.
Oh, he says one of the roses was actually for you.
Yes, to begin with. And then we ended up having our second daughter, whose middle name is Rosalind. So now each rose is for the girls.
That was great that you pointed that out. You should give him some sugar later.
I think I will.
One thing I'll tell you that I love about the South is how they say, like, to kiss somebody, this is giving sugar. I love that.
Yeah.
I use that all the time.
Give him
It's
some
like
sugar.
the sweetest thing I've ever heard in my life. Sweet, pun intended also.
You're on a roll today.
I am on a roll. So I'm going to go back to your business now here in town currently. Now, with your tattoos, you don't just do regular tattoos like everybody else, but there's something specific about the way you do tattoos. And I would love to hear about this right now. And I'm sure other people listening would love to hear about it too.
Awesome. So we actually have a ministry that we run through the shop called New Hope Inc. And New Hope Inc. was started under the guise of being covered in self-harm scars or tattoos that no longer define you. So I struggle with self-harm for many years, and still struggle with depression and anxiety. And so part of my story was being able to be used in this ministry as a way of helping other people overcome their scars. So, people that wrestle with self-harm oftentimes hit a point where they plateau and they're done, and they've won their battle against self-harm. But then they're left with these scars, and it doesn't matter how many times they say they're done or somebody else says they're done. Every time they see these scars, they're a reminder of where they were when they were cutting. And so my goal is to cover these scars, and we do it at a deep discount in exchange for their story. So we get their written story and we put them all together in a book on the coffee table at the shop. And we get the chance to turn their scars into beautiful artwork where they look at it and are no longer ashamed of where they were. The other part of the ministry focuses towards tattoos that you don't describe you anymore. Like sometimes we see pentagrams come through that somebody may have gotten when they were younger, and now they're in a position where they're in a Christian life and they want to cover this pentagram. Or we'll see swastikas come through, people that were in the stuff that they were into when they were younger. And now they're like, man, I'm so ashamed of this tattoo. And to carry that shame is really heavy. So we want to help them overcome that identity crisis and give them something beautiful to look at. The last part of the ministry focuses on human trafficking cover-ups. In human trafficking, we see a lot of tattoos that are the names of the pimp who feel like they own the women. And so they will brand them with a tattoo. Sometimes it's their name, sometimes it's a code name, sometimes it's a lot of people recognize UPC codes as human trafficking tattoos, which started more with international trafficking than it did with stateside trafficking. But we'll cover these tattoos free of cost because nobody owns somebody else. So having themselves marked to be owned by somebody else just doesn't sit right with me. And when I asked God what I could do about it, I was like, I'm here, I'm willing. What can I do? And he was like, you have all the tools that you need to do something amazing and take away that ownership symbol for them. So I went running headfirst into it, and I haven't been sorry or regretted one of them.
That is so incredibly fascinating. And it's so specific. It's like I don't know if I've ever heard of like a tattoo parlor or business or anything that has like this mission that you're doing. Like it's insane. Like you're handling all. I mean, there's a lot of tattoo shops. Probably most of them do like cover ups of stuff. But
Sure.
the specifications of what you're doing about, and the people writing their stories on there, and then you're dealing with the trafficking. A lot of stuff like that's not being talked about enough, I think. Like the sex trafficking thing that's going on in the country, in your local town, all around the world. Like this is not in mainstream media or news or anywhere. And so the fact that you're doing this is just like, I mean, and I'm not trying to be cheesy about this or silly, but like you are literally like a modern day knight. Like in my opinion, in my unprofessional, uncultured opinion, you are like a common day knight for what you're doing, and like your tattoos and how you're trying to help these people and cover them up and give them hope and inspiration with your faith and all this other stuff. I mean, that's your sword and shield.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wild, man. Like talking about this almost gets me choked up, but like that's crazy. So do you have any story specifically that you can share that really touched you, where people came in? Anything specifically that you could talk about?
So, a lot of the human trafficking tattoos we can't talk about because of the safety of the ladies involved. I do have a couple of pieces that I could talk about. One of them is it was on a young lady, and she was probably maybe 16, 15 when she got this tattoo in somebody's basement. You know, a friend of hers knew somebody that tattooed. And she decided that because she had been so hurt by other people, that she no longer wanted to be in love. So she got no love tattooed on her hand, a very visible place, and then was constantly struggling with being judged on this and being questioned about it. And eventually she got to a point where she was like, you know, I've made this vow to myself, and I don't want this vow anymore. I want to be loved. I want to be in love. And so it really came down to kind of counseling a person on the fact that she deserves love. She deserves to be loved, and she deserves to love herself. And so that was sort of my stance coming into this tattoo. We ended up covering it with a rosebud to kind of symbolize the growth that she's gone through, and her demeanor from the time she came in to talk about this. You know, they always come in and they're kind of hesitant, they're kind of nervous, and then they get the chance to talk about it, and I push a little bit, you know, and prod a little bit, but it takes just a touch of that push, and somebody is usually like sharing their entire story. So sometimes our consults that should be, you know, 10 minutes end up taking an hour or two because they start crying, then I start crying. And, you know, and we really get into the meaning of what their tattoo was and what they want it to be now and the change that they've gone through. And so then I asked them to write their story for me, where a lot of people get tripped up on that because there is something very healing about sharing your story. And to share it physically on paper, it requires you to really sit down and think, and to kind of re-experience some of those things, really assess where you want to be and where you're going at this point in time. So that's a really difficult part for some people, to write their story for me. But once their story's written and we do the tattoo, I have before and after pictures of most of them, where it's just like in this no love instance, her vow was canceled, you know, and she left the shop and she really felt like she was capable of being loved at that point. And I don't know about you, but I can't imagine not feeling like I deserved love. Just the demeanor of her changed, the you know, mindset changed. And I was just saying that, you know, I can't imagine being in a spot like that where I felt like I was incapable of being loved or incapable of loving somebody else, and giving that vow to myself physically on my skin, you know, to say, this is my daily reminder of that. I can't imagine being in that spot.
Yeah, me either. Wow. The job that you do is so heavy.
It is.
Like, there's so much gravity there. You carry the, I don't want to say burdens, but the pressures of all the things that these people go through on your shoulders. So that's a daunting task, I can imagine.
One of the things that I recently did in the last year was to become a certified Christian counselor. And a lot of that had to do with the experiences at the studio, because you're already touching somebody. So you're in their personal space. They trust you enough to let you in that far. And so a lot of times people will just share all kinds of things. funny things, happy things, sad things, deep things, things that you can tell they've never shared with anybody else before. And then you just kind of sit there, and what do you say after that? So I felt like I really needed to build on my own skills to be able to help people walk out of there feeling like they hadn't said everything that they said in vain. And sometimes just saying it is enough of a reward for them, to feel good about it. But sometimes, there's deep issues that need to be talked about: domestic violence, self-harm, dangerous, toxic relationships, just things that, people share in that intimate moment that make my job worth everything to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're incredibly wealthy.
Very much so.
Like you were absolutely rich, and
Very
all the
much so.
things that matter the most in this world. And that's a huge testament to you and the mission that you're doing and your business and all that stuff. So I tip my hat to you.
Thank
Allie.
you.
So when it comes to the talking a little bit more about the sex trafficking thing, a lot of people like me, when you and me had this conversation when I first met you, I didn't realize just how close this whole sex trafficking was to just me, like next door to me.
Absolutely.
Explain to people out there, because there's a lot of people out there that live all around us, in where you're at, where I'm at, in the Birmingham area, that don't realize how real this human trafficking thing is, and how it's really like next door. And
Absolutely.
I say that like metaphorically speaking. Explain that to people, because people really need to hear this, I think.
So human trafficking is at its root just the epitome of evil as far as I'm concerned. You're taking a person and you're putting a price tag on that person. You're forcing them into doing things that are unthinkable and unimaginable, and you're making money off of that. It is $150 billion a year industry. Some of the biggest hitters in the world are involved. What people always seem to think about human trafficking is that it just comes from overseas. People mail order brides, or,
that's what I used to think. I used to think that.
And the reality of it is that these traffickers are grooming children. The average age to get into human trafficking for a young girl is 12 to 14 years old. That's the average age. And they're being groomed in their schools. They're being groomed by people that are quote unquote their friends, that are telling them that, they have this friend who would love to meet them, and, they're going to make them into the next top model. They're going to make their singing career a reality. And so everything is built up on these dreams of people, and kids, particularly vulnerable children, who end up in the scheme of things walking into darkness, just utter darkness. There was a story that I heard not too long ago about a mother and a daughter that went to a modeling agency event that seemed kind of sketchy, but legit overall. When they got there, they were both accepted. So they both packed their bags and went to the hotel where they were going to stay. They were asked for their identifying information, so their photo IDs and driver's licenses, their credit cards and stuff. We're going to keep all this safe for you while you're doing your modeling. They were both stuck in human trafficking because of that for several years. And mom went with her daughter to this modeling thing to ensure her safety, and ended up, both of them were being trafficked. So there's nothing that these traffickers won't do to try and just get more product underneath their belts.
And this stuff is happening here locally.
Absolutely.
Obviously, because you're doing the tattoo work, mission stuff.
So one of the big shout outs I'd like to do is to the Well House, which is a human trafficking safe house here in Birmingham. Their location is kept secret for the safety of the women. They are...
Do they have like a website or anything that we can share?
They do. The wellhouse.org. And they are residency, temporary and permanent residency for trafficking victims. And they pick them up from all over the country. Now, I say that, but if you get their emails, some of their most recent intakes have been from Hoover, have been from Vestavia Hills. So, we're not talking just, oh, they grabbed these people from New York City. We're talking about right here in your backyard. They also just broke ground on a child sex trafficking safe house where they will be one of the few in the country that can take in children under the age of 18 and safely house them and help them recover. So they are pushing the envelope to try and resolve the problem. And it's been amazing, the work that they've been doing.
And do you partner up with them?
So it's funny, we serve, our life group goes and serves Thanksgiving dinner to the ladies at the Well House every year. And when the church calls them, they always say, "Oh, you're the church that has the tattoo artist."
Nice.
And we are like, "Yes, that's us." So they absolutely know who we are and, that we are on their side. And, they rehabilitate these women to be able to go back out into society and live normal lives. A lot of them don't have photo IDs anymore. They don't have bank accounts. They don't have driver's license or even their diploma. So the Well House helps them achieve all these things, and then helps reintegrate them into society when they're ready.
2 questions I have. First is, what should people look out for? Like, especially like young ladies, women. What do they look out for to protect themselves from getting caught up or stirred up in this craziness?
So I would have to say that probably the best thing that you can do is to be aware of your surroundings. One of the things that is currently happening is traffickers are making things on cars, like they'll put tags on the front of the car, on the windshield wiper or whatever, so that when you get in the car, you see it, you want to come back out, pull it off your windshield. Well, when you do that, the attack happens. And so...
What does the tag look like? Like a ticket or like...
I mean, it could be anything. Could be anything. Sometimes it's in like a note, like somebody hit your car and left a note.
Oh, so you're reading it, so you're distracted.
Absolutely. Other things to look for are just people that don't belong. When you're shopping, especially if you have children, make sure that you know where your children are and watch the people around your children. A lot of traffickers work in teams. So, and we're not just talking men, we're talking men and women by themselves, in a team of 2 or 3 that don't have children but are shopping in the children's section, and looking at your kids.
I was just about to say, not to make a joke on this, but I totally go and like I buy action figures sometimes in like the stores, and I'm an adult over there looking at toys, but I'm just looking at toys. Anyways.
Right. Well, and that's not to say that everybody out there that's doing that is somebody to be aware of.
Yeah.
But,
it's basically just about minding your surroundings.
Mindfulness is important.
Right. I used to do Krav Maga martial arts, and one of the big things that they would teach us in class was to mind your surroundings. Like they said, you scan your area, you look around, just in case, like what if something were to happen? Do you have an escape exit, or do you hear footsteps coming? Like what, and like you're out, especially in the parking lot, you're like looking around, is there people walking by? Do things look weird? Like, and people just need to be very mindful of their surroundings and stuff too. That's very important, just in general life anyway.
Very much so. And one of the things that I would like to share for ladies, men too, but for somebody that doesn't have a concealed carry weapon, wasp spray, you don't need a license to carry it. It sprays further than mace and is just as accurate.
Really?
Really.
Ooh.
So in our truck door on the driver's side, we have an open can with the lid off, ready to be sprayed, should anybody try to enter our vehicle.
That's awesome.
And it's just little things that I don't want people to be paranoid, but I want people to be aware. When it comes to your kids in school, a lot of grooming happens in school. And the grooming process is, we're going to prep you to meet with somebody who's going to make all your dreams come true. If your kids are starting to hang out with somebody that they're spending an awful lot of time with, you don't know the parents, they've got kind of a sketchy background, stories don't add up, just chaperone, send an older sibling with them. Just make sure that you know who your kids' friends are. A lot of these traffickers will prey on vulnerable children. The demand, unfortunately, covers everything. It covers healthy children, unhealthy children, children with Down syndrome, children with, learning disorders and mental disorders, mental illnesses, children with missing limbs. I mean, everything. There is a demand for everything.
I gotta tell you, like you tell me this stuff, it kind of makes me sick a little bit. I'm not trying to be dramatic about it, but it's really hard to hear this, but it's good. Like I need to hear this, and a lot of people need to hear this. This is like this should be the first thing that's talked about on the news every day.
Absolutely.
Even over the presidential debates and
Absolutely.
anything else going on around, like this should be the number one thing.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, it should be talked about. This is what you should see on CNN when you turn it on. I heard a story the other day about like this trafficking ring that went down in Georgia, and they rescued like 75 children or something. And like you have to like go digging for that. That wasn't like on the front page of the newspaper, or it wasn't like on the. And I'm like, what is the deal here?
People are scared to talk about it, because if they don't talk about it, I think their mindset is it doesn't exist in their little bubble of reality.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
That's right. And the truth is, if we talked about this stuff more than we talked about the debate or the coronavirus, we could be saving lives, and saving not just lives, but, when you pull a 14-year-old who's been trafficked for 4 years since they've been 10 out of this world, that's lifetime trauma that you have to repair. That's lifetime trauma that this innocent child has had to undergo of unimaginable proportion. And that affects people for the rest of their life.
It does. Yeah, I agree. It's a painful thing to think about, but I've witnessed it. And it's one of the most heaviest things I feel like somebody could carry around with them, and to deal with that as a child, right? Because you shouldn't have to be dealing with that stuff. That shouldn't even be on the radar, but unfortunately it does. My second question was going to be, for people that suspect any weird things going on, any foul play or something they might suspect of being like, they're like, oh, something's weird about the neighbor, or that store over there, or that van. What should people do? What should they do? How can they do anything?
So the National Human Trafficking organization has a hotline, and it's 1-888-373-6969. 7888. You can also text 233-733 to chat. And this is for anybody that thinks that they've been involved in human trafficking, for anybody that thinks that they have a tip involving human trafficking, or anybody that has the belief that they have been targeted by traffickers. The reality is that more and more calls are being made to these numbers, but the amount of response to these calls is just a fraction of the iceberg of what the problem is. The more people that we can get that are using the hotline and using the chat line to really get into the details and issues, and, you know, hey, this girl at school is, you know, in this realm of people. She's got friends that are in their 30s. We go to their house and hang out. You know, these are people that are dangerous. And to get those things under control sooner than later helps us all in the fight against human trafficking.
Jeez Louise.
Not to get deep on you or anything.
No, of course not. We don't get deep on this show. Not on this show. Allie, thank you for sharing all that stuff. And there's still so much stuff to definitely talk about. When this podcast comes out, I'm definitely going to post as many links and that number and the website, wellhouse.org, and all that stuff, so people can really look into it. I mean, because this is really powerful stuff. It's, you know, this information could save someone's life, change someone's life. This could, who knows, you know, this could create more knights, you know,
Absolutely.
more knights like yourself to fight against this evil, against this terribleness. And it's very important. Now I'm going to get to the point of the show where I get a little bit more just personal about when I ask the guests what they currently are wrestling with. And you've talked a little bit about it. You said you've dealt with self-harm and depression, and maybe that's what you're still dealing with, or maybe it's something else, or maybe it's something lighter than that. But what is something that what are some of the biggest demons that you're fighting with in your life currently, and how are you trying to, you know, wrestle the grip away?
Geez, I think that definitely the depression and anxiety are probably two of my biggest demons at the moment.
Where do you think the depression and anxiety stems from, if I can ask?
Well, for me, the depression, I believe, has come from trying to constantly seek people's approval. I want to be that people pleaser, and you can't please everybody. And so learning that, and still learning that, you know, finding my worth in the right place rather than the wrong place. A lot of women especially think that their worth is based on their motherhood or their ability as a wife, when in all reality, God tells you what you're worth. And so just trying to keep up with knowing who I really am and whose I really am helps in kind of overcoming some of that depression. I am on medication for depression and anxiety, and I, just like some therapists I know, take my medication every day. And there are definitely days where I hold that medication in my hand and say, but I don't want to be on it every day. I don't want to see it, you know, in my system all the time. I want to be without it. But for me, the reality right now is that it is helpful and it is saving my life right now. And so a lot of the depression too comes from carrying the baggage that I carry from the studio. And when I say baggage, I just mean the depth of these stories. They sit with you, you know? And so sometimes I get lost in somebody else's reality and just really empathetic towards that. And the anxiety, you know, I wish I knew where the anxiety came from. That one I think I struggle with more on a level of just wanting to be kind of hermited but I want to help people so much that I find this contradiction in myself.
Your gift is your curse.
My gift is my curse. And, but at the end of the day, the emotion from the person that I'm working with wipes away that depression and wipes away that anxiety. And so serving others has helped just catapult me out of some of the darkest spots. So, yeah, those are some of the things that I struggle with right now.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. What an episode. My gosh. I'm just lost for words. I don't this has been very powerful. I will go as far, and not to take away any of the other guests I've had on, because they've all been beautiful and wonderful and inspiring, and they've challenged me as well as other people that have listened to their stories. But this might be one of the most powerful podcasts I've ever had, just because of the degree of what it deals with. And you're a really strong person, Allie. You really are. I want you to plug in, like, how, if people want to come get some work done, if they want to come see you, get some work done, or if somebody maybe that's listening to this or even watching it falls into any of those categories that you're working your mission with, how they can come find you, and just plug in any of your businesses or anything like that, how people can find you and all that stuff.
I'd be happy to. So you can find us on Facebook under Living Water Art Studio. You can also email us at livingwaterartstudio@gmail.com. Reaching out to us through the studio's Facebook page and through the email are probably the best ways to get in touch with us. If you fall into one of those categories and you want the messages to be private, emailing is probably the best way to go, because you're going to reach me personally in that email. And I can help guide through the process of what happens next. Also, if anybody is in a position where they feel like they may be experiencing some of the things that we talked about today, my email is always open to take on those questions or concerns, or, for somebody to just needs to reach out for help. That's what it's there for. So please, by all means, use those. And I look forward to hearing from some of your viewers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Allie, God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad people like you need to take care of yourself. People like you need to exist in this world. This world needs people like you. Absolutely. And I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I honestly believe it. This has been a very awesome experience. Thank you for honoring the Wrestling Diaries presence with your presence. We really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely.
Obviously, this mission you have is going on. We have kind of a mission. Ours is a lot lighter than yours, but it's about getting people's stories out there, right?
Yes.
And letting people, anybody, even if someone feels as small and insignificant as, like, I don't know, a little pebble, they can get on a platform and feel like a king or queen and feel like they're on top of the world and tell people their story and inspire others to challenge themselves and change their lives for the better.
That's the biggest thing about what I do, is everybody says, why do you do tattooing? Like, what is it about tattooing that you love? And for me, it is the stories. That's the root of it for me. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I really appreciate that you guys are out here doing your own mission to share stories.
Struggle is manhood. Struggle is humanity. And there's something beautiful in that. Ladies and gentlemen, another episode, another great episode with an awesome, awesome guest. I don't know where I would be without these awesome people that come on here. Allie talked about some really incredible things, and hopefully it pulled on some heartstrings, and people maybe it can help you become proactive, or at least put in your head the things that are going on and give you a perspective, because I feel like that's very important. Hell hath no fury like a woman determined on a mission. And Allie's a really strong woman, and there's a lot of other women out there like her, and there needs to be more nights. And that's very important. Check us out on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcast. And, I hope that someone learned something very incredible from this, because I know I did. And I definitely, I want to challenge myself to try to seek out this mission of trying to help people. And especially in this form, human trafficking. Jesus, like, I can't believe this is a thing. Like, we're in 2020 and this is a thing, but it is. So it's very important. Hopefully this opens up eyes and ears and reverberates like a nuclear explosion in some mausoleum. As always, what do you wrestle with and how can you beat it? One love.